We've got a student presenter, Nathan Kolterman, is here to read his poem choices. So, yeah, let's give it up for Nathan. Come on up.
So I wrote this poem back in 2023, and I think just sometimes we feel that life just kind of goes in a weird cycle, and we feel trapped, and that's just something I wrote about. All right, this is choices. Life, a crazy mess of beautiful doors. Doors lead to every new avenue, down the winding road of choices made and not made. Doors, each a choice, each one so tempting, inviting, but how to know which one is fair or foul, which will harm or heal, no person can say, but I can. I have chosen wrong. Avenues, the thoughts after the doors, the realization of the choice you've made. You see the choice you've made, the path you choose to live. You wish to turn back to the door which you chose. Shut. It's shut behind you, unyielding as a brick wall. Stuck. Wishing to go back, to choose differently, to choose a better path. You sit with regret, wanting to change. You look up and see doors again. You run to them thinking, anywhere is better than here. In your haste, you choose again. Without thinking, you are drawn to a choice. Without thought, you choose it. Step through. There you are. In a place you wish to leave, in your haste to flee, unthoughtful of your choices. Again, you've chosen wrong. Again, you realize. Again, you face yourself and your choices. You ponder, will this never-ending cycle of choices end? Or will you ever choose right, go through the right door? Or will you ever be stuck in the ever-winding avenues of doors of life? I am ever stuck in this loop, ever stuck in the shame of my choices. But do I continue to linger in my shame? If I trust in my own strength, I will continue to fall and feel shame. But there is one I trust. He has the strength to help me out of my shame. He has the strength to help me choose the right path, the right door. He is my hope and my trust. He is my joy and my grace. He will never leave me. He will never forsake me. And he is always there for me. But not only for me, but for all. He will help all who call on his help. I am broken, but not forsaken. I'm ashamed, but not unforgiven. I have lived through pain, and many also have too. But I have hope, and you can have it too.
All right, thank you, Nathan. That was great. Our guest today is an LHS graduate. He's the Julius C. Shaw Professor of Sports History and Associate Professor of History at Georgia Tech University. His research focuses on the history of American sports and American popular culture, about which he has authored 5 books, including his most recent, Jumpman, The Making and Meaning of Michael Jordan. He has won multiple book honors, including the North American Society for Sport History Book Award. And in 2021, Netflix released a feature documentary based on his book, Blood Brothers, about the friendship between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. And he is also a 2-time recipient of the Journal of Sports History's Best Article Award. So please welcome one of our very own, Dr. Johnny Smith.
Good morning, Wildcats.
Good morning.
All right. By the way, I'm very proud of you. That was impressive. Wasn't that impressive? I mean, how old are you?
17.
There is no way you could have shoved me onto this stage at 17 to share something that I wrote. That's an incredible gift, an incredible talent. I hope you keep writing, keep sharing. That's awesome. That's a powerful thing. Incredible. I'm thrilled to be back. I grew up in Libertyville. I graduated, dare I say it, 25 years ago. I haven't been back to Libertyville in like 23 years, 24 years, something like that. I haven't seen snow in 4 years because I live in Atlanta and it hasn't snowed there since 2020. So I was actually kind of excited. Like I had that childhood excitement, like, oh my gosh, snow, let's go play in the snow. And I was like, oh wait, I gotta go to school, right? I'm sure you all had the same idea. Oh great, I gotta go to school and listen to this guy talk, okay? But I'm happy to be here and I hope that we can have a good conversation and that maybe you learn something about writing. So let's get started, okay? First slide. What you have to understand about what I do is that first and foremost, I'm a historian. I'm an author, I'm a storyteller, and historians, as you may guess, we write about history, we study the past, we study change and continuity over time. But what I love about being a historian is it's really like being a detective. Because writing history requires finding sources that are scattered all over the place, in archives, in libraries, in newspapers, in people's diaries, in all sorts of places. And I, as a historian, when I write a book, I've got to find all those sources. And those sources are like the pieces of a puzzle. So for me, writing history is about reconstructing the past, finding sources that are like the pieces of a puzzle. Now, the difference, of course, between putting an actual puzzle together and writing is that when you put a puzzle together, someone gives you all the pieces in a box. That's not what happens being a historian. You have to figure out what the picture on that box is going to look like in your mind, in your imagination. And you can't really do that until you find the pieces. So it's a complicated process. Storytelling is a complicated process, but it's a lot of fun, okay? So I love being a historian. That's number one. Next slide. Throughout my career, I have focused on the history of American sports. So at Georgia Tech, I teach courses on modern American history, I teach courses on the history of American sports, and some other seminars. And I have great students. It's a great place to work. And there's several reasons why I've decided to devote my career to writing about the history of American sports. Number one, it's fun, okay? But more than that, too, is that I believe that sports not only reflect the values of society, but they also tell us about the shared experiences in a community, in the United States, in Illinois, in Chicago, in Libertyville. We can learn a lot about a community by studying sports. When I drove up to the school, I realized that that big sign for the baseball field, that wasn't here when I was in high school. The softball field out front, that wasn't here. But do you know what you learn immediately about Libertyville when you come in to the front? This is a sports-crazed school, right? Sports matter here to this community. So if I was writing about LHS, the history of LHS, sports would be an integral part of the story. It's also an integral part of my story, which I'll get to in a moment. But throughout history, what really interests me about sports is that sports have been at the intersection between American culture and American politics. That sports have served as a central site for debating different conflicts, whether it's over race or gender or immigration or all sorts of other issues. Take, for example, the story of Jackie Robinson. How many of you have heard of Jackie Robinson? Most of you. Can anyone tell me who was Jackie Robinson? Raise your hand so I can see you. It's kind of dark, but somebody. Where are we at? Over there in the end. Thanks.
Yeah, Jackie Robinson was the first African-American Major League Baseball player. He wore 42 for the Dodgers, I think.
Yeah. Very good. What's your name?
Jack.
Jack, you have a great voice for radio. Like, I would continue to listen to you talk. Just wasn't that pretty good? Very calm, smooth. Yeah. So what's powerful about Jackie Robinson is it became a symbol for the fight for civil rights. So the story of Jackie Robinson, the biography of Jackie Robinson, it transcends the baseball field. It's a story about America. Well, those are the kinds of stories that I'm interested in. And I first started thinking about those kinds of stories growing up in Vernon Hills in Libertyville. Next slide. I was drawn to stories, to great stories. So as a writer, I'm what you call a narrative historian, which means that in my books, the history is told through story. I think narrative is the best way to learn history. I think students, readers, are more able to absorb, retain, and understand history if it's told in story form. And I recognize that not everyone here in this room is going to be a writer or an author, and that's okay. You find your path. but we're all storytellers. All of us, we tell stories, right? We tell stories to our friends in the hallway. We tell stories to our teammates in the locker room or on the team bus. We come home from school, we tell our parents a story, right? Mom, wait till you hear what happened to me today, right? Mom, are you listening? My daughter does this already. She's 5 years old. She said, Dad, watch me, listen. She tells me about her day at school. I love it, I miss her. Okay, now, why do we tell these stories? Because stories are powerful tools. Powerful tools that can appeal not just to the intellect, but to the emotion, to the heart. Right? They can move us, they can persuade us, they can convince us. They help us connect with people. Fundamentally, storytelling is powerful because it helps us build connections, build relationships, build communities, build knowledge. That's the power of storytelling. Next slide. Okay. This was me. This was me. I know, the American flag. I get it, yeah, I don't know. Thank you. No, I was not a member of the Young Republicans Club. I don't know. You know, back then in the 90s, Ralph Lauren was in, Polo Ralph Lauren with the American flag. I thought it looked good.
It does.
Oh, thank you.
As a history teacher, though.
Okay, all right, you made my day. Thank you. Okay, but let's talk about the picture on the left. Number 4. Number 4 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts, Johnny Smith. Last man at the end of the bench, admittedly. But did you know, fun fact of the day, the LHS cheerleaders had a Johnny Smith cheer, okay? And if that didn't make my heart swell, nothing else did, okay? I was like, I don't care if I'm out there on the court. They are chanting my name, right? Like, what other boy is getting his name chanted in a cheer on the basketball team? It was fantastic. But here's the thing. This is a varsity senior year picture. My freshman year, I went out for the basketball team. I didn't make it. I didn't make the team. I thought I should have. I thought I played well during the tryouts. And my my nemesis at the time, a kid named Ryan Doyle, he was from Michigan. His whole family went to Michigan State. They rooted for the Red Wings and the Pistons. He was so obnoxious. He made the team. I couldn't believe it. It was like Ryan Doyle. Ugh. So I was pretty peeved. But I internalized not making the team as a failure. And the fact is that when I was at LHS, I had pretty low self-esteem. I was a kid struggling with self-doubt. I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't try very hard in school. I was a C student. Maybe the reasons for that are complicated. On the one hand, I think I was battling probably some depression, things going on at home that made life difficult. On another level, though, I think that I didn't try because if you don't try and you fail, well, it doesn't say anything about you. You just didn't try. But if you try and you fail, well, then maybe you're just a loser. But I wasn't a loser. So my senior year, I'm just like, I know I can play with these guys. I know I can. I play pickup ball with them all the time. I can play. I'm not the best. I made the decision to try out. It's my last chance. I'm not going to let that tryout from my freshman year define me. So I made the basketball team. I was very proud to be part of that team. One of my great mentors here was the assistant basketball coach, Andy Bitta. He was also a legendary soccer coach. I learned of his passing a few years ago. Made me sad that I didn't get to see him. But he was a big part of my life when I was here. And the thing is, when I was at LHS, even though I wasn't great in the classroom, I had great teachers. 3 of my teachers came to my high school graduation party at my house. And it wasn't because I was their best student, far from it. But, you know, I had this bond with them. That's what I remember about Libertyville, this sense of community, this sense of connection, and that stayed with me. So something else stayed with me, though, here. I went in to see my guidance counselor my senior year to talk about colleges. And she looked at my transcripts, and I told her where I wanted to go to college. And she said, you know, you're probably not going to get into these schools. And she said, it's a good chance you're just going to be a C student in college. And that just like deflated me because it's like, that's who I am. I'm just going to be a C student in college. I'm just going to be average. I had a really hard time accepting that. But that's what I believed about myself in that moment. So I had to change it. Slide. Summer of 99, after I graduated, my mom and my stepdad, they got divorced. My mom and my little sister, they moved to Arizona, where my brother was going to school at U of A. That summer before I went to Illinois State University, I lived with my dad in Palatine, and I worked in a sheet metal shop where my dad worked. And it's not a glamorous job, it's a hard job, a dangerous job. You're working with sheet metal, you cut your hands, you cut your arms. And what I saw in that shop was men showing up doing the same monotonous work day after day. And I thought to myself, I don't want to end up back here. I've got to do something. I've got to make something of myself. So I went off to Illinois State with that on my mind. But before I left, on July 2nd, 1999, I learned of some news that just shattered me. This man on the left, Ricky Birdsong, who had been the head basketball coach of the men's team at Northwestern, he was murdered in a hate crime. He was walking down a sidewalk in his neighborhood in the Chicagoland area with his 8-year-old son, Ricky Jr., and his 10-year-old daughter, and a white supremacist, a neo-Nazi who had been opening fire in Indiana and parts of Illinois on Jews, on Asians, and black people. He killed him. He was just walking down the street. He didn't have any knowledge of this man, that he was a former basketball coach at Northwestern. I knew Coach Birdsong. When I was in middle school, one of his assistant coaches, Paul Swanson, their whole family, they lived down the street from me, and I became really good friends with Brett Swanson. And so I was always around the Northwestern basketball program. And when I was around Coach Birdsong, he was always charismatic and friendly and generous and kind and warm and all these good things. I didn't care that his basketball teams weren't very good. I just liked being around the program. I liked being around him. And every time I saw Coach Birdsong, he didn't ask me about, playing basketball or whatever. He always asked me, how you doing in school? How you doing in school? And I would lie to him. I'd say, I'm doing good. Because I had all this shame. I didn't want to tell him I wasn't doing good. I wasn't doing my best. I regret that. But here's the thing. After he was murdered, I went to the funeral, and I was there at the church, and I just lost it. I just lost it. I felt really alone and vulnerable, and I could not process that this hatred existed in my state, in my country, and that his life was taken from him, a father of 3, a husband, a mentor, a teacher. And the thing is, growing up in Libertyville, it's pretty insular then. I didn't know any black families. We didn't talk about racism in my house. Racism was something in the past, in a documentary, when Martin Luther King's giving speeches, right? Or Jackie Robinson's playing baseball. It wasn't part of my consciousness. But this event, it forced me to reckon with it. And it would force me to think about my education and what I wanted to write about. Slide. So I went to Illinois State for 2 years, and I realized I love learning. And I got straight A's. And so I realized, hey, you're not a loser after all, You can do this. I felt capable. I felt confident. And I began to fall in love with books. So after 2 years at Illinois State, I transferred to Michigan State, and I followed my best friend, Ryan Doyle. Ryan Doyle and I would eventually become really good friends. I was the best man at his wedding, and I gave a great speech. I wish it was recorded. It's the best speech you've ever heard at a wedding. Not to brag, but it was really good. Okay. I go to MSU, and I'm a history major, and I'm thinking about teaching, and I took a class with this man, Professor Pero Dagbovy, who taught African American history. And it's in that class, in his seminars and in his office meetings, the one-on-one time we had, that I began to grapple with the history of racism, with the Black freedom struggle, the civil rights movement. All of that opened up to me in his class. So I had to write a paper for him, a 20-page seminar paper. I was like, oh my God, 20 pages, are you serious? So I ended up writing about Muhammad Ali, the great heavyweight champion of the world. I turned in the paper, I got an A on the paper, and he says to me, you should go to graduate school, okay? I'm like, graduate school? What? Are you really? He's like, yes, keep writing. Keep writing about sports. Keep writing about race in America. You have an ability. Now, keep in mind, my parents didn't go to college, so this is like a foreign idea for me. But he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. We all need great teachers. We all need great mentors. So feeling inspired, I went on to get a master's degree in history from Western Michigan. And then from there, I went on to get my PhD at Purdue, studying with this man, Dr. Randy Roberts. Randy would be my writing role model. I wanted to write like Randy. He's the most talented writer I know. He's the smartest person I know. And Randy and I would become, well, he's like a second dad to me, frankly. And when I was at Purdue, I really fell in love with the idea of writing books. So I got my PhD. Not bad for a C student at LHS, huh? And then I published my first book, Slide. The Sons of Westwood. This is me at my first book signing at the Georgia Tech Barnes & Noble. I signed a few books. That was kind of cool. Talked with people who bought copies. It was a great experience. What is this book about? So John Wooden was a fantastic basketball coach at UCLA in the 60s and 70s. They won 10 national championships in 12 years. 10 in 12 years. 7 in a row. They were the most dominant force in the world of college basketball. And this is the moment when college basketball became a big business, when there was real money involved because it was the age of television. But the other part of the story I wanted to tell was how the best players at UCLA became political activists. You know, this is an age of the civil rights movement and black power and the Vietnam War and campus unrest and debates about free speech at colleges and universities. So I wanted to write about this collision of cultures between the sports world, which really had these boundaries. You know, college athletes, they're not supposed to talk about politics. They're not supposed to talk about racism. Oh no. But the athletes at Wooden's, in Wooden's program, they defied those political boundaries. How did I do it? Slide. Okay. Are you staying with me, by the way? Am I going too fast? No? Okay, great. I begin with a question. It sounds simple, because it is. Start with a research question. What do you want to know? I wanted to know how Wooden built this incredible team. How did he do that? That was one question. Then I wanted to know, what was it about UCLA that compelled these players to speak out against the Vietnam War, to speak out against segregation? How did that happen? What were the costs? What were the consequences? So I had all these questions. So I began reading everything I could get my hands on, secondary materials, histories, biographies, you name it. Then the real fun starts. This is when the detective work begins. Go there. For me, there was UCLA. Loved going to UCLA to do this research. Beautiful campus. Collect the primary sources. That means going into the archive. An archive is a depository of all sorts of materials. So I'm looking at old student newspapers, campus yearbooks, letters, documents, oral histories, on and on and on. So I'm starting to find those puzzle pieces, right? Organize all that material. So I have all these file cabinets. I do it old school. I like paper. I'm a bad environmentalist in that way. But I organize all the material. And once I do that, I can construct the timeline. See the order of events. Once I have that timeline set, then I can start to see the book in my mind. Because I can see the arc of the story. The beginning, middle, and end. The arc. The beginning, middle, and end. The turning points, the conflicts, right? Then I'm ready to draft the chapter 1. Let's go to work. Let's do this. Here's the thing about narrative writing, though. I don't want to just share information. That's not my purpose, okay? That's part of it. I want to educate the reader, but I want the reader to experience the moment, the events. I want to put them in the place of the setting, okay? And so I've got to think about how to do that. There's certain techniques that I use to try to do that. So when I wrote the first chapter, I knew I needed a line. I needed a line that would make the reader want to keep reading. So this is what I wrote. John Wooden wanted to turn around, but it was too late. Indiana was long gone in his rearview mirror. He wanted to turn around. It was too late. Indiana's long gone. What I've done is I've immediately given the reader questions to grapple with, and the answers are in the coming pages. Keep going, right? That's what you want the reader to do. And so then I describe Wooden. He's tense. He left his job at Indiana State for UCLA, which at that time was terrible in basketball. They had lost like dozens of games in a row to USC, their crosstown rival. They were awful, and he's filled with doubt. The man who's going to become the single greatest college basketball coach in history. he thinks that maybe he made the greatest mistake of his life. I wanted the reader to know that, yes, but I wanted to feel that fear that he has when he packed up his family and moved them from Indiana to California. Okay, I set regular goals, right? The difference between a dream of writing a book and the goal of writing a book is that a goal has clear action items. I can write 500 pages a day. I can write 2,500 words in a week. I can write 10,000 words in a month. Chapter is done. I can do that, right? Have that goal. Then I go through an editing process, a revision process, on to the next chapter. Slide. Okay, how am I doing on time?
Yeah, about 20.
Woo, I'm doing better. Last time, I was a little slow in the beginning, but now I cut some stuff, and we're gonna have time for Q&A, I promise you. This is probably my most commercially successful book. It's called Blood Brothers, okay? The fatal friendship between Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. Muhammad Ali, king of the world, a polarizing figure of the 1960s and the 1970s. The heavyweight champion. He was a proud black man who was mentored by another proud black man, a minister in the Nation of Islam named Malcolm X. But the thing is, when Muhammad Ali was still known as Cassius Clay, his given name, his Christian name, he has these aspirations of becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. But he knows that if he's seen with Malcolm X, while the FBI is following Malcolm because they think he's part of a terrorist sect, that he's a communist, he was not a communist, but that he was a danger, Cassius Clay knows that that could blow up in his whole career, right? Because the boxing promoters, the boxing writers, the boxing fans may dismiss him and say, we do not want him using the heavyweight title to disseminate hatred. You see, the Nation of Islam, the group that Malcolm and Ali would eventually join, was known for rejecting Christianity, rejecting integration, and wanting to build separate black communities. And so they were a very controversial group. Cassius Clay can't risk his career being involved with Malcolm, at least publicly. So as a writer, I had to figure out, with my colleague Randy Roberts, how to write about this relationship when they were together at moments when the public didn't know. So here's one way we did that. FBI documents. FBI documents. I read thousands of pages of FBI documents. It's actually a lot of fun. But it's challenging too because many pages are redacted, which means that the pages have this black marker and you can't read stuff. You have to figure out, okay, well, what is the FBI hiding there? But again, it tells you something about how history is written. Sometimes we don't have all the information we want, but I had just enough to tell what I needed to say about this relationship happening behind closed doors and eventually that developed in public eye. Okay, so it's a complicated story. It's a story about friendship and affection, this brotherhood that forms between the most famous boxer in America and one of the most famous black activists in America. But it's also a story about how that relationship frays, falls apart, and ends with the assassination of Malcolm X in 1965. The book became a Netflix documentary. This was the coolest thing that ever happened to me as a writer, okay? So Randy and I, we sold the film rights to a production company called Lightbox, and then they got a deal with Netflix. And so I worked with the director and the producer to put this documentary together. I served as a consultant, basically. And then they flew me out to LA, and they interviewed me for so I could be in the documentary, helping tell the story. So if you go on to Netflix, and you're interested in documentaries, or you're interested in history or sports or whatever, you might check this out. You'll see me in the documentary. It's pretty cool. Yeah, next slide. I've written some books about baseball. I'm not going to say much about them today. Mickey Mantle. This story, War Fever, is about 3 characters in Boston during the First World War and the great influenza pandemic. One of those characters is a young Babe Ruth. Next slide. My most recent book is about my childhood hero, Michael Jordan. And there's a number of reasons why I wanted to write this book. But the book tells a story about how Jordan pursued his first championship in 1990-91 season against the backdrop when there's growing pressures for him to be a voice in the civil rights struggle. And so it's a story about how race and politics and celebrity shaped Jordan in profound ways. Next slide. Okay, this is my last part, and then we'll get to questions. Writing tips. These are my 4 tips. If you want to be a writer, Think about how these tips might help you. Okay. Anyone here want to keep writing? Anyone? Couple, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you going to keep writing? Maybe? Okay, a handful of you. I get it. Here's the thing. I didn't think I was going to be a writer when I was in your spot. I was thinking about being a sports broadcaster. That's what I thought I was going to do. Then I thought I was going to be a high school teacher and a basketball coach. I didn't think I was going to end up here. Certainly not. At any rate, good writers are good readers. You've got to read every day. Read books. Drink from good books. It's crucial. Even if you're not going to be a writer, read books. One thing that concerns me sometimes is I have students, I assign books in my classes at Georgia Tech, and they have a hard time reading anything of length because it requires focus. It requires concentration. You've got to develop that muscle now, okay? So do yourself a favor, even if you're not a big reader before you go off to college, if you're choosing to go off to college and you're going to have to read in the summer. Set a goal. Read a few books. Anything you want, anything that interests you, you pick the books. Okay, write about subjects that matter to you. If you're going to be a good writer, it can't just be about a topic that appeals to you here. It's got to come from in here, the fire in the belly. You got to wake up in the morning eager to get back to your desk to punch those keys because you care about the subject. Number 3, begin with the end in mind. Write with a goal. You have to have purpose. What is it you want to accomplish in writing this book? If I go back in time and I look at my time in high school when I often felt like maybe invisible, unimportant, writing, it has given me a voice. I know who I am. I know what my talents are. I know what my strengths are. I'm not good at a lot, okay? I can't fix anything that breaks in my house. I am useless. I gotta call somebody. But I have other abilities. They end up taking me places like this. Okay, finally, write in a way that engages the reader's mind and heart, right? You've got to appeal to moving people. Move them in a way that makes them feel something, think something, right? Make them laugh, make them feel surprised, excited, joy, maybe even sadness in some ways. That can be instructive as well. But ultimately, write in a way that makes them want to keep reading, to turn the page. That's what I try to do. Hopefully, my readers feel like I'm encouraging them to turn the page. That's it. Any questions? Anything? Thank you. That was nice. Yes, hi. Miss Laura? What's her last name?
Laura.
That's her. Well, maybe not though. It isn't. Why? Should I know her?
She was just a history teacher. She retired last year.
If I saw a picture, maybe. Can you show me a picture after we're done? Maybe. I cannot remember her name. I had a history teacher. She pulled me in the hallway one time. I talk too much in class, okay? And she said, Johnny, you could be doing a lot better in here. And I was like, yeah, I like history. I feel bad about this, okay? Now that I'm an educator. And so that stuck with me. Another time, freshman year. This was back when the Brainerd building still existed. My teacher, Chris Curry, he taught English. Great guy.
Still does.
Yeah. I was talking in class again. He kicked me out of the trailer. We had these trailers here, okay? He comes out in the hallway. He's like, he's mad at me. For good reason. He had every reason. I wouldn't shut up. Whatever. Maybe I needed to be diagnosed. I don't know what was going on. At any rate, later that semester, though, I wrote something about Cal Ripken, who was a baseball player. And he said to me, I said in front of the class, Mr. Curry, he said, when Johnny writes about sports, he does really good work. And it was the first time, I think, that I had heard a teacher praise me in the classroom like that, and it stood out. Now, I didn't get my act together until later, but one of my fondest memories about my senior year is I saw Mr. Curry when I was in the field house. I was just playing ball or whatever, and we played a game of one-on-one, and it was great. Like, he never held it against me that I was a pain in the ass. He was still this great teacher, and so I remember that. I remember these experiences with my teachers who cared enough to say, you can do better. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
When you were in college, what made you make the decision to study history specifically?
Coach Birdsong, I think. I would not have become a sports historian if I wasn't interested in American history first, the history of race, African American history. That's what drove me to think about, okay, I'm interested in those subjects. How can I use sports as a way to talk about them? And I think, too, I had these great lecturers who just pulled me in, and I thought it was endlessly fascinating. I wanted to know more. And I think that this idea that I could read on my own, too, and be my own educator, that was powerful as well. Friday nights, I remember at ISU, like, all the guys on my dorm floor, they wanted to go out and party. Like, come on, Johnny, let's go. I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay in, I'm gonna read. They're like, you're gonna do what? I'm like, yeah, I really wanna do some reading. The idea that I could improve, I could learn on my own, like that basic idea was very powerful for me. And so I think it was about asserting some control over my destiny, or at least feeling like I could. You all can do this. You know, that's not to say there's not barriers, there's not challenges. They exist, they're very real. But each of you have choices. And I think I would just encourage you to think about the choices you make because they matter. They have consequences. And at any rate, yeah, that's a good question.
Right here.
It's really, in the back, yes.
Did you ever run into any research roadblocks for any of your projects? And then, like, how did you overcome those or decide how to pivot what you were looking for so that you could get the information?
Yeah, okay, so first of all, that's a great question. I have boxes of what were going to be books, but it just wasn't going to work because the sources didn't exist and I couldn't even start it. I just knew to write it the way I wanted to, it's not going to work. So, okay, you put them aside. Then there's other cases where I'm in the middle of a book and I'm continuing to do research along the way and I realize this thing that I know existed at one point, I can't get my hands on it. So one example is when we were writing Blood Brothers, I went to the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, and I wanted to look at these State Department records because Muhammad Ali had taken a tour of Africa, and I wanted to know, what did the government think about these anti-American statements he was making? And there were a few things, but there wasn't a ton. And I know at one point there were more documents in there. But as a historian, you are you're relying on the record keepers. You're relying on the archivists. What has lasted the test of time? Sometimes you get the stuff, fantastic. Sometimes you have to write around it. But this is an important lesson. Pay attention to the silences. Every source reveals and conceals. You can write about what's not there. You can write about what's missing. And you can carefully, thoughtfully, speculate, but sort of tell the reader, okay, what do you think is missing here in this story? So acknowledge it. That's what I try to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm losing my voice. It's only the second period. Where are we at? Over on the end. Jack, right?
Yeah.
What you got?
Is there a favorite sport that you've ever written about? I mean, basketball seems like something you like, but is there anything else?
Yeah, boy. You know what? I'm writing a book now about Joe Louis, who was a great heavyweight boxing champion in the 1930s and 1940s. What I like about writing this book is that writing about a boxing match is easier than writing about a basketball game or a football game or even a baseball game to some extent. Why? Because I've got two main characters in the ring that I can follow and I can describe that action. It's much harder to describe a basketball game and the magnificence of Michael Jordan. You have to really see that. It's hard to recreate it in writing. It was really hard to describe Michael Jordan as a basketball player. Not that I felt like I had to, but so boxing. Yes. Amazon. You just put in the title. She's gonna buy a book, I think. Which one do you think you're thinking about buying? Blood Brothers. Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's on there. You can get it. And they make great gifts. Just, you know, Father's Day, Mother's Day, they're not far off. What else? Any other hands? Yes.
When they made the documentary, did they just like re-interview people you talked to, or were they able to add information that you thought was cool?
Yes. They absolutely interviewed people we couldn't. Many of them were African American people. The director is a black man. Randy and I were white. And we were very aware that could be a barrier to earning the trust of some people who might be, we're strangers. Calling them up, knocking on the door. So I think that was an important element in the film that we weren't able to add in the book, was more interviews from black observers, black family members, etc. So I think that's a strength of the film that we wish we could have done for the book. But kudos to the director for being able to do that. And so, those are kinds of things you have to think about. Best interview story, though, okay? How much time? Do I have time for a story?
Yes.
Okay, so when we were writing Blood Brothers, there was one person I really wanted to interview. It was a man named Sam Saxon. Sam Saxon met Cassius Clay when he was training in Miami in the early 60s to become heavyweight champion. And Sam Saxon was a member of the Nation of Islam, and he sold the nation's newspapers. It was called Muhammad Speaks. Okay, long story short, Sam Saxon becomes one of Cassius Clay's very close friends, and he's the one that took Cassius Clay to Detroit to meet Malcolm X. So I wanted to talk to Sam Saxon. But he had changed his name. He had taken a Muslim name. I couldn't find him. So I told Randy, I was like, God, we've got to find Sam Saxon. At any rate, I'm getting ready to get on a plane to go to Ryan Doyle's wedding, okay, in Michigan. And I'm at the Atlanta airport. I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. And I see an older black man in a wheelchair with a giant diamond ring on it. And I'm looking at this ring, and it says Ali on it. So I study his face a little bit more. And I think to myself, and forgive my language, holy shit, that's Sam Saxon, and we're about to get on the same plane. So I went up to him, and I said, Minister Rahman, you don't know me, but my name's Johnny Smith. I'm a professor at Georgia Tech. I'm writing about Muhammad Ali, and I've been looking everywhere for you. And he said to me, well, that's what they call divine intervention, my brother. And he gave me his phone number when we came back to Atlanta. He sat down for an interview, and he told me these stories that were great, some of which I used in the book. And he told me some tall tales, too, that I didn't use because I didn't believe them. And because you're dealing with memory of people, and you got to be able to verify some things. At any rate, sometimes you just don't know what you're going to find. But it was a great thrill, great part of writing the book. Did I miss any questions? Anybody? Yes?
How much time did you spend a day every time you wanted to write a book?
Because I have other responsibilities teaching, sometimes the teaching will disrupt my writing process, so I have to be mindful of that. Generally, what I try to do, I'll put it this way, generally it takes me about 3 years to research and write a book, if I'm really moving on it. I think that's about the average for each of my books. Whether I've written them on my own or I've written them with Randy, 3 years has been sort of like the number. But you gotta do it. That's pretty fast, actually. Sometimes people are like, oh, it took you 3 years, that's a long time. I'm like, that's fast. That is fast. But I'm determined. I'm antsy. When I'm not writing, I get anxious. And my wife knows, like I'm not in the house and she's trying to talk to me and I'm distracted. She knows what I'm doing. I'm writing up here because you never put the story down. You never put it down. I can't do it. I can't put it down. But that's who I am. Those are good questions, y'all. Now I say y'all. Now that I live in the South, I didn't say that when I grew up here. Yeah.
How many books have you written, and is there a particular story you would want to write about besides the one that you're already trying?
Oh, good. I like that. I've written 5. I'm working on the 6th. I've got an idea for a 7th. I would like to someday not write about sports. I have some ideas for other areas of pop culture. I'd like to write about the history of popular music. There's certain icons I'm interested in, and I think I'll do that someday. I think it's just a matter of timing. So I think I'll move into that area. I've also thought about writing about World War II in different ways. So I've got these other ideas, more ideas than I'll have time for. But it's fun. The best thrill, though, my daughter, she's in pre-K, and they asked parents to come to school, talk about what they do. And I came to her school, and I talked about writing a book. And let me tell you, this is nothing. Right? Talking to you all high schoolers, try getting 10 little toddlers together to tell them what you do as a writer, okay? But the best part was my daughter, she didn't want to sit with her classmates. She came up on my lap, she wanted to be right there, and she was just so excited that I was there. So I love that she sees that you can write stories, you can do that. And she's writing her own little stories at 5 years old, and you can write your own stories too. Even if they don't get published, each of you have a voice, and you should use that voice in ways that are important to you. That's sort of, my major message today. Anything else?
I got a question.
Yeah.
From a publisher's standpoint, has there been any pressure on you to get involved with social media?
Yes, but I hate it. His question was, is there pressure for me to get involved with social media? I have a Twitter account. I have increasingly become non-active. I check in on it once in a while. I don't have a Facebook anymore. I won't get into reasons why about that either. But I think the short answer is I think social media is often a toxic place. And I don't think there's a lot of advantages for what's called a mid-list author. I'm considered a mid-list author. I'm not a best-selling author. I don't think there's a lot of advantages for me. The publisher wants me to do that, to be active, to try to sell books. But I hate being a salesman. I hate it. They asked me to write op-eds, to try to connect my books to something happening in the news cycle. Okay, I can do that. But I hate that too. It feels like I'm trying to follow the marketplace in some ways, which is not why I wrote the book in the first place. So that's a tension point for me as an academic who also writes for a broad audience, that there are these commercial pressures. But I'll tell you this, I've made a decision that I'm not gonna let the marketplace dictate what I do anymore, because it's made it hard on me.